Rawteur. I was one of the first people on YouTube to suggest that Francis Ford Coppola's passion project could be the biggest flop in cinema history. At the time of this writing, the movie has only recouped a little over 3.5% of its budget, could be about 4%. I'll be using my industry expertise to break down in the simplest form possible why Megalopolis is actually the least grossing movie ever made. I know what you're thinking, it's only been 2 weeks. Well, when you break down the numbers, it's looking bad and Coppola may lose a huge chunk of his net worth in the process. You see, $10 million could be an 80% loss or a 5% loss, depending on the budget. Therefore, the proper way to assess a flop is by percentage and not by whole numbers. Before I can address Megalopolis' standing in the rankings, there are two movies that I have to address because they're often thrown around in error as the lowest grossing. The first is ZYZZYX Road, and then of course Waterworld. It's always thrown around. Right now, Waterworld actually went on to become profitable, and ZYZZYX Road actually made almost $400,000, which is about 33% of its $1 million budget. Megalopolis, on the other hand, with a budget reportedly around $120 million, was self-financed by Coppola using his own wealth. Firstly, I want to commend him for having the balls to put his own money up, because that's a risk that few directors are ever going to take, and it speaks to a larger issue of why most of these new sci-fis are reboots, because no one wants to take that kind of risk. According to reports, Coppola either sold off assets or used his winery as collateral to secure the funding. If we're assessing flops based on percentage, then Cutthroat Island would have been the biggest flop because it only recouped about 11%, which came out to $10 million of its $98 million budget, followed by The 13th Warrior as the second biggest flop because it only recouped 38% or $61 million of its $160 million budget. Megalopolis opened to an estimated $4 million at roughly 1,900 theaters. This means that each theater only made about $2,100 from the movie for the entire first week. Now, between weeks 1 and 2, there was a 75% drop in sales, from 4 million to 1 million, meaning each of those same theaters made only $525 from the movie for the entire second week. So I expect that this week and next week, we'll see a drastic drop in theaters showing the film. This shouldn't be too surprising as Rotten Tomatoes audience score is only 35%. Cinema Score is rating it as a D+, and post-track exit polling had it at a 1 star. Let's break down the numbers that allowed Megalopolis to secure the least grossing title. Let's say Megalopolis scrapes out another million this week for a gross of $6 million total. Theaters typically take around 50% of ticket sales, although this can fluctuate, especially in the early weeks when a movie is new and more in demand. So if the theaters are taking 50% of the $6 million, we're already down to $3 million. The studio acting as the distributor would take a distribution fee. Typically, it's a percentage of the box office gross, which can range from 10 to 30% depending on the terms of the deal. Now, because of Francis Ford Coppola's cachet in the industry, I wouldn't expect it to be as high as 30%, right? But no studio wanted to partner on the production side, so I doubt it was as low as a 10% fee. All right, so let's say somewhere in the middle at about 15%. So we'll be looking at about $450,000 distribution fee. So $450 from $3 million, we're left at $2.55 million total after 3 weeks in theaters, which is a recoupment of 3.5%. Keep in mind, Cutthroat Island recouped 11%. Megalopolis is less than half of that right now. Given Coppola's estimated net worth of around $4 million, this project put nearly 25% of his net worth on the line. Megalopolis would still need another $115 million to break even. This is something reminiscent of his financial woes faced during the production of Apocalypse Now. The difference this time is that Coppola's own capital is at the forefront, making this potentially one of the most personal gambles of his career. After the movie leaves theaters, we would expect it to have a streaming deal, whether it's Hulu, Amazon, Netflix, what have you. The movie would still need to make an additional $11 million to avoid remaining as the biggest flop in history. The most unfortunate part of all of this is that this may be used as a case study by future studios and productions that pushes sci-fi genre more and more towards reboots and the less expensive mystery box style concepts, because just less risk.